What have we here? Welcome back, or welcome for the first time, but this is my 1999 Casita. As you can see, she's airborne. Yep. And if I'm honest, I could adjust that bearing a little bit, maybe grease her up, but we're not worried about that today, because guess what? We've got some big stuff coming, and stick around. We're not working on the trailer today. This is more of a planning video, so stick around. This is going to be a multi-parter. So getting back to basics, what I have here, don't mind that rattle, is a 1999 Casita Spirit Deluxe, unless somebody else knows different, and then it's whatever you say it is. Anywho, it has a Dexter torsion flex axle. What that means is that, I'm going to do my best to breakdance here, that it has a straight bar axle, and I'll show you a better example here in a minute. But anyway, square tube axle between the two frame rails. Off of that axle is a little arm like this, right? So imagine my fingers are the wheel. This is the spring that goes into the axle. It basically pivots like this. I feel silly doing this, but this is how it works. This arm on this axle, I'm too lazy to remove the tire to actually show you, but anyway, that arm's up at about a 5 or 10 degree angle. I suspect that's not factory. So what these do is this tube, this axle tube, is a tube with an axle through it that they're different shapes, and so they have rubber fingers in there, if you will, or large rubber strips in there. And what those rubber strips do is they act on each other to provide the suspension or the travel of that swing arm, right? And so as these age, the rubber will degrade. Dexter, if you look online, warranties these axles for about 10 years. People commonly change these axles out at that warranty limit. We're dealing with a 26-year-old RV, 26-year-old Casita. And so the options are replace the axle with the same thing, replace the axle with maybe a leaf spring axle, which requires some fabrication. A lot of this would be welding stuff, right? And I'll get to the downside of these older Casita trailers very specifically. These axles are made from the factory by Dexter to be replaceable. There's typically 4 bolts or maybe 6 bolts. You remove it, you drop the axle out. Unfortunately, they're not rebuildable. I have checked. There is no video online showing you how to rebuild a Dexter axle, to my knowledge, that is achievable at your house. Like, you can't fix them, which infuriates me to no end. I don't like things that are disposable. I try to, well, if you watched any of my videos, I recycle a lot of stuff. Sometimes with a hacksaw, sometimes with a chainsaw, but I recycle a ton of stuff. So it does infuriate me that I can't unbolt a few pieces and that those rubber bushings in there effectively aren't in some manner replaceable. However, I'm not an engineer, and I know enough to say when I'm beat. So you're going to replace the axle. I had all these options. I talked to several trailer people. The most knowledgeable person, I'll give you more info on him. I'll probably put a link to his Facebook page if you're in the Portland metropolitan area. This guy is a phenomenal resource. His name's Mike. He sells trailer axles. He's a trailer fabricator and has been since the 1990s. But as kind of a side hustle, or maybe even a primary hustle, he now sells axles to order. I can order an axle. This axle that I'm about to show you took me about 4 weeks to obtain. But in talking with him and several other trailer professionals, I decided that I was not going to switch things up. I am not putting like the Timbren axle-less system in this. I'm not putting leaf springs in this. I am replacing this with a factory axle, but it's not a Dexter. You're going to have to wait and see that. And it's starting to rain, and so we'll get to the timing of this here in a minute. Oh, getting old kind of sucks. So, and I can't even see myself. Let's do this. Do that. Now what you guys can't see is a middle-aged guy picking up Oh my God. Lift with your back, not your knees. Holy smokes. This thing is heavy. Okay. Oh, doggies. I think we're above the safe working limit of this table. Oh my gosh. So as you guys can see, what I have here is a brand new Lippert LCI torsion axle. The cool thing about, sorry, I'm breathing hard. The cool thing about this is most of the dirty secret, if you will, of these axles is all this stuff is just generic hardware. I can buy bearings for this axle just like a Dexter, any Napa on the planet, that sort of thing, backing plates, brake drums, bearings, all that stuff. You can see this is the torsion arm right here that I've got my little hands on. This is the square tube I was referring to. These things, I am told by my new friend Mike, who sold it to me, are a direct factory replacement for a Dexter axle. If you're replacing an axle on an older trailer like mine, the manufacturer, I don't understand why. It could be the cost of the mount, because Mike did tell me that these mounts that I also have bolted on here were 70 or 80 bucks back in the day, 20, 25 years ago. And so many manufacturers opted just to mount the axle directly to the frame. And in like the case of my trailer, it is welded to the frame, which is going to make this a little more complicated. Well, it's going to make it a lot more complicated, because ideally what would happen is the trailer manufacturer would have this mount. Again, this is doubled up. This is the mount bolted to the axle, but they would have this welded into the trailer frame, and then you would simply bolt the axle to it. Again, in this case, it'd just be 2 bolts on each side, 4 bolts total. Boom, you're kind of off to the races. Any backyard mechanic like myself could easily replace this axle. Now we get into the professional homeowner arena, which is, if you're like me and you've got a little 110 MIG welder, which is probably what we're going to use to weld this, I'm going to take this axle, put it underneath this trailer, and weld it myself. It's not complicated to weld, and Mike was very specific on what I should and shouldn't weld. If you're installing this axle, I was going to originally put the axle in place, mark it or maybe tack it, and then unbolt the axle and drop it from the mounts and then fully weld it. He advised me, because sometimes these bolts get jammed up and he's not sure why, and the way he does it is when he manufactures a trailer, he simply puts everything in place and just welds it up. He welds to what he can get to, what he can see easily. So he's not worried about getting into these tight spots, just where you can kind of get your welding gun. And his reasoning is sound, which is when you weld it, you don't want to put a ton of heat into this axle. The heat, there's rubber bushings or little rubber fingers in here that this slides on that are going to not do well with heat. So, I don't want to do that. So we'll just zip, 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 zip. Done, right? So in addition to not putting heat in it, his other point was you're just sticking 2 pieces of steel together. There's not really a load on them, because obviously the trailer frame is going to sit on here and you'll weld it down. So basically the only load on that weld is going to be pushing back, pushing forward, side to side, that sort of thing. But the massive load is just sitting on here, so it's not going to be that big a deal, at least according to Mike, who, again, I really thank for taking an extra half hour, 45 minutes to talk to me about the installation. I have the tag here. I'll probably bring a camera over and show you the specifics, because getting the trailer axle specs out of Casita is like pulling teeth. And this is, if you don't watch anything else of the video, certainly my installation process is going to be differently than yours, but what the key factors to this is you need to measure from wheel mounting surface to wheel mounting surface. And so that doesn't mean the edge of the drum right here. And again, I can't even see in the viewfinder, so I'm hoping that you're seeing what I'm pointing at. But the face of the drum is not the wheel mounting surface. If you can look closely, there is little I don't know, ridges here cast into that. You need to measure from that. The way I did it was I just took a steel ruler, I clamped it to there with the lug nuts, and I clamped it to there, and I measured straight across. This is all on my old axles, how I did this. So when I was speaking to him on the phone, he was, again, very knowledgeable guy. He wanted to know frame rail to frame rail. I gave him the outers and the inners. So this, I've already measured this one. It's going to hit just dead center of these two plates. But additionally, it's very obviously important that your wheel spacing is correct on how much it's going to poke out the fender or go into the fender, obviously. So those are the really, really important. The other thing he's going to ask you is what degree of axle do you want? Obviously, you can't tell now. If you watch my older videos, you've seen this thing, and it's kind of like a little low rider. Again, the torsion arm's bent slightly up. Again, because I think the suspension has collapsed. These tires are a little bit oversized for the application. It's never rubbed or anything like that. So what I've done is I went from whatever the old one was. I'm not really worried about that. We're putting in a new axle. And so what I got was a 10-degree drop. Now, if you've ever wanted to lift your trailer, listen up to this, because you can go on Amazon and you can buy a 3-inch spacer block here. But I wasn't interested in doing that. Why? Because this axle is brand new. Why would I put a spacer into a brand new axle? What I did instead was I bought a drop axle, meaning, in fact, the down travel, if you will, of my axle on the side here, and I'll try to get a shot of that, is that my torsion arm to the axle is got at a 10 degree. So it's just slightly angled down. And if you remember, my left arm, this arm, being the trailer frame, and this arm being the torsion bar, mine currently is up something like this. What I did is I got a 10-degree drop. What I calculate that to be is going to be between probably 3 to 5 inches of lift. So this trailer, when we're all done, sorry I'm sweating, it's super humid. We're about to have a downpour, but it's going to give me about a 3 to 5 inch lift on the trailer. Or when I say lift, it'll be 3 to 5 inches taller than what I currently have. Again, not a huge deal. I haven't built this trailer to be extreme in any manner. Make no mistake, I'm not converting this to an overlanding trailer. This is not an off-road trailer. Let's call it off-road light or off-road-ish, meaning Forest Service gravel roads, maybe a little bit of mild 2-track type stuff. Not a big deal. That's kind of my sweet spot, right? Rock crawling, heavy stuff. It's a camp trailer. It wasn't designed for that. I'm not interested in going down that rabbit hole, and I'm not interested in damaging it. So back to the axle. This is what I purchased. These axles, to me, given my budget, are relatively inexpensive. This one was just over $600. It's less than $650, more than $600. And the pricing, you'll have to work it out with Mike if you buy one from him. But I'm in that $600 to $700 range. Now, you can get this cheaper if you don't buy the backing plate, the brake drum, all this assembly, because you can buy these bare. I opted, since I've got a 26-year-old axle, my bearings are fine, that part of it's fine. However, I thought while I'm in there, I might as well just buy all brand new. And so it was slightly more expensive. Again, Dana and I travel months at a time. The last thing, in addition to not wanting to change tires, which led me to putting light truck tires on my trailer, the other thing I don't want to deal with is having to do maintenance on the road on this brand new axle or some old piece that I tried to redo. So if budget's a super big concern, that may be a way you can cut costs. The other thing I did is I got non-adjustable brakes, and I did that on Mike's advice. So you can order these with adjustable, self-adjusting brakes, or adjust it yourself brakes, basically. And his thing to me was, if you do buy the non-adjustable brakes, which he recommended, because his point was that the self-adjusting brakes will tighten up over time, just automatically, and prematurely wear your brakes out. His advice to me, him being the professional, was that buy the adjustable ones, but not self-adjusting ones. Sorry if I misspoke. And you may check the adjustment once a year. But again, it's on the way an electric brake works is there's a big arm in there on an electromagnet, and it swings. And his point was, if it's not properly adjusted, it's just going to swing a little bit more. So it's again, not mission critical. I did save a little bit of money by buying the non-self-adjusting brakes. But with that, the other thing I did is I did not buy a Dexter axle. This is an LCI axle. It is made by Lippert. But having said that, it is a direct, I'm told, is a direct replacement axle. So, for instance, you get somewhere, you're in Montana, you break down the local Ace Hardware, all they've got is Dexter axle parts. Guess what? It's all the same. Right up into include, if you needed to unbolt this axle, drop it out, and that's the other advantage to me putting these mounts in, because whoever owns this trailer next will now be able to swap the axle with either an LCI or Lippert axle or a Dexter axle. They're universal. They're made specifically to replace Dexter axles. So this is, ideally, if you're watching this and you have, say, I think they changed in the early 2000s on Casitas and you just need a new axle, this is a bolt-in replacement for that. You're not going to be up, and to anybody that's not in the Casita world, Casita for a period of time, I think the early ones are bolt-in axles, and I think the later ones are bolt-in axles. I think the breakover is in the, call it 1998 to 2003 or 4, is when they were just welding them in. And again, a possible cause for that, according to Mike, was that back in the day, the trailer manufacturers charged like 60 or 80 bucks for a set of these just raw steel mounts. And so trailer manufacturers didn't want to buy that, which I can understand, and they didn't. So again, their thought process, I'm not exactly sure. I couldn't speak to that. But I went ahead and got these. They're no extra cost. The axle comes with the mounts, and all you got to do is, well, like I said, all I have to do is grind the old ones out and weld these new ones in. And once that's done, any future owner, myself included, although, I mean, let's face it, the last one went 26 years. I'm probably not holding on to this thing this long, but should I ever need to, let's say the trailer got damaged or something, it would be as simple, and again, I could do this roadside, literally. I mean, I need to buy a couple jack stands, but other than that, I could do this in the field, basically. The other thing Mike told me is your trailer brake wiring, which these are equipped with trailer brakes, is not polarity specific. So if you cut the wires, when you replace it, it doesn't matter the polarity that you hook the trailer brake up, which way you hook it up. So again, 2 wires here. I don't know if these will be more visible. Anyway, 2 wires, and just hook them to your old wires and you're kind of off to the races. So again, the big part of my project is this. And again, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. I wanted to go with nearly as factory equipment as possible. At some point, Casita Trailer Company, I'm sure, employed an engineer who spec'd this out very precisely, I'm hoping. And other than that, I really appreciate what I hope is a short clip here. You're watching on a Wednesday. I'm currently camping. We're set up before a torrential rainstorm. According to the weatherman, in the next 24 hours, we're supposed to get 2 to 3 inches of rain. And that's the other thing. It's Friday now. I'm leaving for a short trip. Dana and I are leaving for a short trip in this trailer on Monday through next week. So I either get this done tomorrow if the weather clears up, which is not looking good, or I push this out a week because it's, I'm not going to, in fact, I'm like 80% that this is going to happen in a couple weeks. Yep. That's Betsy, my neighbor. Anyway, so I'm look for a second part to this, maybe not next Saturday, but the Saturday after you've watched this video, but maybe the following Wednesday or Saturday, because this will be job number 1, is getting this installed. Having said that, please comment. If you're seeing this video, this axle has not been installed yet, and unless you see an axle installation video before then. However, in the next couple weeks, feel free to comment. Tell me what I'm goofing up. If you have some expertise, I'm asking you. And the other thing I'll do, in fact, I'll just shoot a separate clip, but I'll shoot some clips of this so you can get the actual specifications of this axle. In fact, I might even have what I used. I have to duck out of frame because unfortunately I'm middle-aged and my eyesight isn't what it once was. So let's see. My wheel mounting surface, as on this 1999 Casita to be specific, what I came up with is wheel mounting surface to wheel mounting surface is 65 inches. The inside frame rail measurement to inside frame rail measurement, meaning the inside of the frame rails here, was 46 inches. My outside to outside was 49 inches, which means that this, because I, again, already measured it, is my frame rails are going to come right across the top of these plates. And I did a 10-inch drum, which is the same as factory. It'll be bolted to a 5-lug wheel, which is typical on a 3,500-pound trailer. My lug pattern, which is pretty typical in 3,500-pound trailer axles, is 5 lugs on a 4.5-inch lug spacing. And so, otherwise referred to as 5 on 4.5. Again, your older Jeep Cherokees, Ford Rangers, Volvos, a bunch of European cars back in the day had this same lug pattern. Many trailers, to include factory Casitas like this. When you start going up in trailer weight, you're going to wind up buying wheels and tires because you go much past. In fact, I think a 5,000-pound axle, if you were to upgrade the same thing with a 5,000, would have a 6-lug bolt pattern. So factor that in. You know, if you're one of these people that absolutely need a heavier duty axle, I went with the same axle because this thing is what it is. If Dana and I need to have the trailer be lighter, we're not going to take as much stuff. That's as simple as it is. And if you can't figure that out, sorry, we pack light, admittedly. But that, I think, is the nuts and bolts. So please stick around. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate you watching my little diatribe. I'm kind of glad to make this video right now because that way when I make the install video, I'm not going to go over any of this stuff. We're just going to be bang, 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 or grind, 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 and pss, 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 with some spray paint. It'll be good. So yeah, let's get after the installation process in a week or so. Again, I'm 80-90%. If it's looking like it's going to clear up tomorrow morning. However, I don't want to leave myself a 4-hour window. I want a good 1 to 2 day build process on this. And Rick's availability is limited. Rick is a much better I have a welder. I can weld. Rick is a better welder than me, and I want to do as good a job on this as I possibly can. Thus, we're working around his schedule as much as mine. So stick around. There will be more marginal content. I virtually guarantee it, barring some like medical mishap or something like that. So anyway, stick around. I'll throw some clips of this tag in here. And as always, have a great week. It's going to be more marginal stuff to come. Maybe a travel video next week. I might can't. Kirby, Angela, if you're watching this, how about we shoot a video next week when this comes out? Or we will have already shot that video if you're game. So, anywho's, we'll get to that. Have a great day. Oh God, this thing's so heavy. Doing, dum-dum? Huh? Talk about working out. That's like CrossFit. Holy mackerel. Yeah, I don't want to get this wet. Oh. Oh, gosh.